as you can see, it's a hearse, and it came from Barnesville, Maryland. Larry Palmer is the former town manager, mentioned that one thing this museum was lacking was a hearse, and he said, if you find one, I'll buy it. So we heard about it. It was in a man's garage. He disassembled, his health started failing. He found it was going to go to a museum, so he priced it reasonable enough. It was taken to the guy who restored all these vehicles, and he restored it completely. And basically he had to remake this section here because that was gone. The axle was sitting up under there, the seat was sitting on top. That's not where it's supposed to be. So he had to rebuild all of that, so you'd never know it was new. The coffin is a permanent loan, so it's not donated. Town doesn't own that. It's a gentleman basically loaned that for us. It's called a viewing casket. And it's one in which in the home, because back in those days, people would live far away sometimes to be able to get to see, like during the wake. So what they did, there's a zinc liner in there. They put ice under that, put the body on it to kind of half freeze it, and in that way, it would preserve it until it's time to bury him.
So it'd be a little bit more.
Yeah, and they had it where you could open to see the face, open it completely, or even open to get a full body view, whichever you wanted to do.
Wow. I think Vicky would be interested in that.
That's the one thing I haven't gotten used to moving out here from the West Coast is you guys always want to open the box out here.
Everybody wants open casket funerals.
Here we have a sleigh. There were two styles. Basically, the sleighs are called cutters.
Right.
There were two styles of cutters: a Portland cutter and a Albany cutter. This one is a Portland cutter, which is more boxing. The Albany cutter is more crescent shaped, like think about the moon.
Okay.
Okay.
So it has more of the loop up the back.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
More sophisticated,
Pole.
flowing. As you look at these two, both have a top. Both of them are one-seated, but there is a difference. Look at the body styling, real boxy, fancy cutout. It's called a drop front phaeton. Phaeton in Greek means lightweight, speed buggy. This basically is lightweight, but also it was designed for the sleekness to be fast moving. I call this a sports car model.
Very good.
Yeah.
There we go.
Phaeton, if you can
The
remember,
Lamborghini.
in the 1920s and 30s, Cadillac and Chrysler created Phaeton automobiles, very expensive and classy. That, as you can see, were more classy. In 1908, Sears and Roebuck catalog, this would have cost you around $69.95. With the top here, $39.95.
Unreal.
I get my car and I can take care of
Right.
that.
Kind of like
Right.
the difference between an Amish buggy and a Mennonite buggy.
Yeah.
Ah,
The three here plus three over here all have the same body design. People I ask why you got 6 of the same. Well, if you look at them, every
Rule of
one is
threes.
different
I love
in some
it.
way. It depended on how you want to design it. These are called runabouts, or also known as piano box buggies. Piano box because they look like the boxes that the upright pianos used to come in. As you can see here, all the different colors indicate the colors you had choices from, but all buggies were painted, all vehicles were all painted black. Black was a lot easier to paint, and there's also one color was just one easier. You could put pinstriping like that, more time consuming.
Yep.
You put three different colors here, more time consuming.
High-end options.
Right.
It's like Henry Ford.
Now,
That's right.
is that rubber on the wheels?
no,
Is
that's a
that
good
real
question. I
rubber?
saw that too.
Right.
I wondered about
Is that
that.
rubber on
Yeah.
the wheels?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
So that would have been for a smoother ride than say that.
Well, you also too, to keep from wearing out the metal. I mean, rubber tire wheels came on after the Civil War because of vulcanization of rubber.
Right. Okay.
But it's a quieter, and
Yeah.
also
Definitely.
it doesn't wear the
Doesn't
iron
wear down
rims
the
out.
wheel down.
The
I
two
think you had told me that before when I came in here before.
two other items here, these two items are sleigh runners. Basically, if you can afford a sleigh, very easily take the wheels off, hook these to the axle, and you now have a sleigh.
So you're good to go in the snow as
Yeah.
long as you got
And that's
the
only like,
hookups.
it would only cost you $7.50, whereas a sleigh might cost you around $25.
Well, I'll
You
be
don't have to
darned.
worry about what to do with the buggy all winter.
Right, and you just use the buggy as long as there's snow on the ground.
That's it.
This is a beautiful piece here.
These
Isn't it?
two,
That is neat.
I purchased at auction in Richmond. I was working for an auction company there. And of course, these kind of give you different designs of different other carriages. These were models that came out of a guy's collection.
Gorgeous, just gorgeous. So is the ice truck, that one's really nice. Very pretty.
As you look at this one, you look at the one next to it, notice how much more
The Derby.
narrow it is.
Yeah.
That's what's called a courting buggy or bachelor's buggy. We have a picture of the original owner of that he drove that. And his sister, his daughter found out we had it, and she came in to visit, brought the picture, so that this kind of made it more formal. People can understand who had it, see who had it, and everything else. And this was purchased in the county.
Very casual, that's good.
Two items here are pony parts. Children learn to drive around 8 years old if you could afford a pony and a cart. The wicker one is what we call a governor's cart. That's where the nanny took the kids out on the property or out on the
Good thing
park.
kids 8 years old today
You
are
got-
driving.
So they
don't
can
they?
sit sideways, so you can sit about 4
It
people.
just gives me nightmares just
Adult
thinking
three
of
people.
my 8-year-old granddaughter driving one of those with a horse.
gosh.
Yeah, I can see that.
God help us.
These are some items that, from Dave's collection, hid leather, and keep in mind, all your harness in the very
If you
beginning had to be
can't do
made by
this,
hand.
they can't
So
drive
you
it.
have a
Exactly.
leather, what's it called, a harness vise, and what he did is, that's to hold the leather, so as you're basically, punching the holes in it, and then running the needle and thread through it, so keep in mind, it had to be made by hand. Then, after the Civil War, we had the sewing machine, so now you didn't have to have the harness bench. And then the machine here, it's a leather cutting machine, you could adjust it, this right here, move it back and forth to the width that you want to, cut the leather. You run in like a ringer washer,
Gorgeous.
and it will cut it.
What year was the sewing machine invented and then kind of came into production? Because it definitely was a
You had-
game
you had
changer. And
normal clothing sewing machines in existence before the Civil War, around 1840s.
Yeah, I wanna say 18.
Okay.
And, this one is probably more 1870s, 1880s.
okay,
Yeah, cause I looked at a singer that was like an 1845 or something like that. I know they
Wow.
came in before that. It was ridiculously
Right.
priced.
yeah.
The loom, of course, that was something I purchased in an auction, and I felt the day that we do the farm museum, that would go in, because I also wanted
Oh,
to do
yeah. That
That
the
piece.
women's role,
Yeah.
women's role in farming, and they had to basically weave the cloth, but also this was used to make the rugs, and some of the lap robes that you see hanging on the wall would have been made on the loom.
Right.
Right. Beautiful.
The cabinet here is for the Blackstone College. In the Blackstone College, since you've been
Right.
reading about the town and everything, it got basically United Methodist Assembly decided they didn't want the building do anything more with the building, sold all the contents.
Yep.
Vandals went in and broke it, but this cabinet was still in the building, and it housed a lot of artifacts about the college.
Yeah.
And then there's Maud.
Then the Methodist Conference took this out, shipped it to Glen Allen to keep it safe. Then they finally decided, it's too big, we don't have where to put it. So they called the college board, there's still a board, Blackstone College
Right,
Board,
Right.
to come and get it. They tried to contact some of the businesses like Citizens Bank and some others who had tall ceilings,
Right.
and nobody wanted it. So they called and asked if I'd put it in. I said, well, best place would be the tavern, but the one wall that I could put it on, there's a big, huge quilt in there. There was a centennial quilt, so I couldn't take it down and put it anywhere else. I said, well, I can make a wall, even though there's a window on the other side, I'll make a wall to put this in. Well, the problem happened to be, when we went to put it all together, the top wouldn't fit.
Yeah.
I had to get, one man kept promising me he was going to cut it himself for free. Turned around, he couldn't, he never had the time. I got somebody else, I thought he would do it for free, but he turned around and said he was gonna charge $500. And all of a sudden, he went and did it, they wouldn't pay him, And so I have not got anybody to be able to come back, because the town tried to put it back up on there and said, it's still too tall. And the
Yeah,
guy,
it's-
Yeah,
the
you
guy I
can see
spoke to him, I
that.
said, how can it be too tall? He said, I measured it from top to ceiling and gave a half an inch distance,
Yeah.
so, anyway.
You gotta lose at least that.
So anyway, that's why it's sitting there, and the artifacts have been put in because the top's not on there. So
What artifacts did you envision putting in there, or how did you
there's
envision using some of
there's
that?
all kind of cloth items, there's books, there's china, silverware.
But that
things.
belongs to Blackstone, right?
Right.
That belongs to the town of Blackstone, so
Okay.
that wouldn't necessarily
Yeah.
be something that would be.
Well, right now, they have this on permanent loan, so they can remove it anytime they want to. Because I told them, I said, you write it in your contract. Because I asked the town manager, he said, that's fine. But I had them make it so it says permanent loan.
Right. Right.
Because that's where the problem we ran into.
Well, you'd think that hopefully maybe the college people, the people that are doing the remodeling, I mean, for
They
them,
might go
for
back
them, they
in.
really
Oh, yeah, I
don't
would
want
think
something
Patel's
like this
group would
around
love
while
it.
they're doing what they're
Especially when
doing.
you. it's
Tail
a
and
hotel
hospitality,
And
yeah.
everything, and people will be in it, there might be more chance of more people seeing it
They
there.
could have
I don't
school
ever see it.
representations in each one of those columns, they could have
I think
just
it's
all
gonna be too
kinds
expensive for people
of
to come
great
in- wanna come
things.
down here
I
to.
mean, if you turn it into some kind of executive,
Hotel.
retreat center kind of thing, conference center, you probably have a go at it, but it's,
I mean, it's gonna be expensive because you're gonna have a theater,
right,
pool, exercise, size room, you know, and the upkeep on that building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
It's
big
gonna be
time.
enormous, I don't know.
But these people, they're known for going into areas and doing that, and
That's
they
what-
do a great
that's what-
job.
Yeah,
at it.
they've done some interesting projects.
I'm like ecstatic that they picked this
Within
building
that,
and that
that,
they're willing to work on it.
See, look at here, the town hadn't even come up here and knows they even got a light bulb burned out.
Mhm.
Guess what, I'm the one that's gonna do it.
That's unfortunate.
The next two items here, classified as road cards, but I don't like to call the yellow one a road card. If you notice the blanket in the background, this looks very similar to harness racing card.
No,
right.
it really does.
And
Yes.
basically, my dad would say it is, he used it as a braking cart to brake the horse
Right,
Right.
and everything
there's
else.
a horse used to that.
Right, and then it's lighter weight, I can pick that up, put it back in a pickup truck by myself.
Seriously.
It's
That
much easier to
would
fall
have
off
that, too.
of when the horse is psycho, so.
So basically, that's what this is, more of a racing cart
Trainer.
and braking cart.
Breaking car, yep, yep. That's
When
what
they
it looks
redo
like.
Ben-Hur, they may put that in
It's
there.
just
You
amazing.
stand up
I
on a
like that.
chariot, come on.
Next item here is a pony track. This came out of Brandon Plantation over in Prince George County. Ended up that, the idea it's called a trap is because on the very back, if you look at, go a little further over, you will see a tailgate.
Oh, yeah.
These were used basically in the fox hunts. The name trap comes from England. In the fox hunting situations, the men are out on horseback
Yep.
chasing the fox. The ladies and children will go out and have picnics and
They have
watch
the
it go
picnics,
on.
yep.
So as you can see, you can have two on the front, two in the back. You drop the tailgate, which might have your picnic basket underneath
Yep.
the seat to be able to put your feet on. Also, tailgating for the fox hunt.
Oh,
Sit
there we
right
go.
there
The
and-
original tailgating, huh?
Yes,
Look at it in the
you
hat.
eat your snacks while you're sitting in the meadow waiting for
Absolutely.
the foxes to run
Wait for
through.
the boys to come back.
Yeah,
Next thing, here's a spindle seat buggy. This came out of Waynesboro. I call this the pickup truck version, because if you look the back end, the back is a lot longer than the ones over
That's a
here for
grocery
more
getter.
storage. Yeah, you could take sacks of feed, you could get flour, you know, you go in town, pick up your groceries and take them on back home, or
Put more of the 8
Yeah.
kids. you know.
yeah. You grab one of the
since
kids to
the
tell them.
Waynesboro area is a more farming area.
Yeah, isn't there a museum of some sort or a collection up that way
What?
in Waynesboro? I thought there was a collection, a carriage museum collection somewhere there in Waynesboro. I had
No, there was a manufacturer, there was like 6 different
Manu-
carriage makers in there.
makers. Okay, all
This
right.
is one of the 6.
Oh, the mail.
So, no, the spindle buggy.
Oh, spoke.
The
I mean,
U.S.
yeah.
mail buggy.
We're going
Up
that,
until
but-
1876, there was no such thing as rule-free delivery. Federal government then eventually started rule-free delivery. If you were going to be a carrier, you had to provide your own form of transportation. Keep in mind, you're going out in the rain, sleet and snow, and you have to make the delivery, so keep in mind, you're probably gonna end up, mail getting wet. So somebody came up with the idea of putting a metal box on a buggy frame and basically setting up something for the US mail. Again, this was not owned by the US Mail Service. You, the carrier, had to buy this. A gentleman in Charlotte County bought this. He was a mail carrier for 20-some years. He delivered the mail from Charlotte Courthouse to Drake's Branch. The original sticker on the label on the back, this was made in Richmond, Virginia. If you look at the front window, you'll see 2 holes underneath. That's
Yeah, I
where the
see.
rains will come through, so you're basically protected from the weather.
Right, okay, of course, all right.
Nothing like that finest Amish styling.
It does.
I know, it's very
It
Amish,
does, but
isn't it?
yeah.
Has that Amish look to it, no doubt.
Over here, we have 2 military saddles. We have the famous McClellan saddle designed by George B. McClellan in 1856, which would be the standard model used by the U.S. Cavalry all the way up until 1946 when they retired
Wow.
the horse cavalry. The
That had some longevity.
this is a 1940 model. This is a Whitman's saddle. It looks similar, but doesn't have the high pommel.
Right.
That was used during the Indian Wars from 1892 until 1908. The card here is a rare piece. Quartermaster's Museum in Petersburg does not have one like this. This is a World War I ammunition cart. And notice the fact the shafts are foldable, because keep in mind, you need all the storage space in the ships. So basically pull it out, then pull the shafts forward, hook the horse up. The same thing could deal with if all of a sudden you're out there, the horse gets shot, wounded or whatever, unhitch the horse, a man on either side could grab the handles and you pull it on up to
drag
the
it
gun.
on.
And
God forbid that be, right?
the next item is a oil wagon out of West Virginia, and the people say, well, how were you carrying oil on that when you got seats? Well, keep in mind, the oil towns were just like the coal mining towns. You went from the town to the oil fields. Some went by, some of the vehicles carried you to the train station to get to the locations. In this case, this carried you from the town up to the oil fields. Then they took the seats out, then they put barrels of oil on there. Remember, the roads were rough, had a lot of ruts. So imagine oil sitting on there. It's a liquid. It can very easily force of it can tip a barrel over. They create an unusual spring system. Notice the front springs are coil springs. In the back, you have double leaf springs that act as cantilevers. One side will be up, one side will be down as you hit that rut. So that way it's keeping that barrel in place.
Then you have all those grooves in there for it.
Right, yeah, leaks out or anything else. Next 3 items are all Thornhill wagons. Thornhill Wagon Company was out of Lynchburg, Virginia. They made wagons all the way up until 1954, when they closed the plant in 1956.
The baby one. I
We
like
have
the
a
little
child's
one.
version.
Oh,
We have
okay.
the 1 horse, we have the 2 horse. Notice the 1 horse doesn't have a body. You could buy that just like it is for around $68. You could go and make your own body. If you didn't want to do that, then for $200 and some, you could buy the body, the 2 horse tongue, and the seat. But keep in mind, that's basically almost a year's pay for majority of
Yeah,
farmers.
that's
So you can imagine a lot of them will go
This
make
is
their own
almost
body.
like what they would use for like the covered wagons, isn't it? I mean, you'd go with that
Conestoga.
body.
Yeah, well, the Conestoga wagons
The
are
yeah.
shaped this way, but you could put the
Cover.
the covers on top of something like this, just by getting,
it's-
just by getting the hoops on there.
The hoops, there it is, the hoops.
Child's version, if you look at the picture right here, you'll notice there that the kids have hooked up a wagon to a goat
Goat.
very easily. Very easily, you can take the handle off of this and put
Great.
a shaft on there, and they have basically hook a goat. I've seen the Saint Bernard even hooked up to
Oh
one
my
like
goodness.
this. But that's the
That's
child's
awesome.
version.
That's awesome.
And what was the little, speaking of little, what was that one right there?
That's a salesman sample.
Oh, that's
Child's toy.
that was, oh, okay, so that was,
Child's toy, but a lot of times your salesman samples became.
became,
children's
yeah,
toys.
that makes sense.
Every year when they found something new,
Okay,
they would change it, so they would end up, whoever owned the store would give it to a child. Club card, or as some of the people in the county
Whoa.
also say, they call them swing cards, because you swing it out, and roll it up underneath the logs. And normally you'd have your log cut, you pull the pin, you roll it up underneath the log. You hook the log hooks to it, run the chains on either side of these metal plates. And the reason I say that, if you feel that, you feel how worn that, there's been a lot of change went across that thing. But it went across there, and as the horse or mule's backed up, what it's doing, it's pulling that chain, log up at least a few inches off the ground. It doesn't have to be all the way up.
Right.
Just enough that it's not gonna hit the stumps or get mired into the ground, because it makes it strains the horses more.
Okay.
Next two items are dump carts. Think of dump truck with the black bar on the red one. That bar, you pull it, all you gotta do, the contents will dump right on out. And these two were donated by two men in the county. This one is an ox cart, and there's the ox yoke to show basically how it would be assembled. And then, of course, this could be done with an ox or a horse, either one. But these two basically ended up being donated.
Wonderful. That is truly wonderful.
So if we move these out, the town still had three. So they had to figure out what they're gonna do with them.
another model, I guess. That's nice.
Yeah. The next one here is a vet wagon.
Yeah.
Basically what this is a spring wagon, which I'll show you a little bit further down. The first one with the fringe is a spring wagon. What I mean by spring wagon, if you look at the wagon over there, those two, no springs.
Right.
Imagine what the ride is like.
Oh,
When you hit those
Horrible.
ruts. This way, the spring,
shocks,
it's
baby.
got springs on the front, and then it's got what we call quadruple leaf springs on the back. Peddlers, vets like this because as they're going down to the countryside, hitting ruts and things like
Sure.
that, it kind of keeps everything stabilized in the vehicle.
Bob, what year were those introduced, the springs and the kind of suspension thing?
Normally
into the-
around 1880s, 1890s.
Okay, all right.
As you look at these two models here, notice that the body's different, but also notice there's no front springs. Two men out of Concord, New Hampshire came up with the idea of trying to figure out how can we make the ride in the vehicle more smooth. Because you try to get in one of those things, it's very difficult, it starts to lean, but then on top of that, when you hit the bumps, you're bouncing up and down like an accordion. So they decided to put leaf springs on the side around about 1813. So,
And they're centered right under where the most weight
right,
is.
most of your weight's gonna be. So the thing is,
Down there.
they found out it did make for a smoother ride.
Yeah, right
But the problem was price-wise, $29.95 versus $19.95.
Ooh, that's a big difference.
I think I've got enough in my pocket. Let me get them both for you.
That's a big difference.
Now, since y'all from up in Minnesota and areas like that, these two you're probably more familiar with. They're called Canadian buggies. The reason is that basically they're the first to come up with the idea. Of course, they did come from Canada too. But notice the axles are steel axles. They're bent upward.
Right.
This is a wooden axle, solid oak wood with iron supports.
Oh, okay.
And these are easy to date because around 1908, they began to make all buggies after that with steel axles.
Got it, okay. Okay.
This is the so-called spring wagon that, turned into a vet wagon up there. When it comes to that song in the movie Oklahoma, this is what you would consider more than that one. Because keep in mind, the Sooners were very poor farmers. They were getting the free land. That's why Oklahoma was opened up. They're rushing to get it. they're gonna have a wagon of some kind to be able to transport their crops to market. I don't think you can do much transporting of that. in that.
Right.
The seats will come out.
Yep.
The top has a nut, or has nuts underneath, that basically all you do is unscrew those, take the top off. Now you got an open wagon. Put the top back on, seats back in, and you got a modern
Go to
day
church on
SUV.
Sunday.
Are those brakes?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's only 4 vehicles in here with the
Oh, yeah, right there.
The,
See the brakes?
Yeah.
first one, this one,
Yeah.
this one, and that one. Only 4 that have brakes.
And all it is a lever, right? One lever that you'd pull.
And just
Right.
mashes
That
up
one
against the
has a
wheel.
lever on the side.
On that
Now,
side.
that one's a brake. If you look at it, it's a foot pedal. And the one
Well,
over there's a
darn.
foot pedal.
Okay, got it. Wow.
You don't want your hearse to go rolling off.
No, that's what I said. Well, you got a lot of weight in there. You don't want,
And see, this
Oh,
one has
yeah.
a foot pedal. Like I said, the other one's got the pull on the side. That's the
wow,
foot pedal.
okay, I see.
These two are again, these are Surreys, meaning 2-seaters.
How the step in,
And-
the back is designed.
And you can end up having either a choice of fringe on top or what we call auto top. Basically, it would fold down like the automobile.
Yeah.
You can get an idea of where Henry Ford.
I was
did
just
the
gonna
idea
say,
of
doesn't that
Yeah.
look familiar with the motor in it?
Very much,
Very
yeah.
much so, and that's where it got the idea. The only reason this one was kept natural, majority of the paint was all gone off of this one. My father got it. It came out of Augusta County. I was with him the day he bought it.
Wow.
And it's back in the hollow so far. I was wondering if we'd got lost or something. And then that day,
Dad, it's getting dark.
there's
We
a
better
little
leave.
story on this one too.
Don't know where we are.
That day we were there, and I turned around and bought a 7-piece Victorian parlor suit before he bought that.
Oh my word.
He buys this. I got the 7-piece parlor suit. We scratch our heads. What are we
You
gonna
guys were
do?
dangerous.
Yeah,
together.
that's right.
So basically, Dad
inside.
ended up, we figured it out. We put the chairs all up inside.
Yeah.
Put the settee underneath this, and we
yeah.
kind of all strapped it down, looking like Samson inside.
So you guys were pro.
Yeah, so basically the idea was to kind of give people an
Right.
understanding of what kind of woods went into making these. You had to have a strong wood because of the weight of the horses
Great way of
could very easily break these. And oak is a very strong wood and more
Yeah.
popular than some of the others. But when it came to the body is made of poplar, which is lightweight.
It's
Wow,
beautiful.
it is
Beautiful.
pretty.
I noticed, you can tell, obviously, which were, your working wagons versus your more family type wagons. Obviously, the wheels were protected so the ladies could get in and
You wouldn't
out.
get,
And
get
you wouldn't
mud
get
on
mud
them.
and grime from, the road all over you by getting in the back seat.
Well, the other thing you can see when you see that type of thing, you can also see it's not that much of a jump to the horseless carriage,
Yeah,
which is where
exactly.
we're heading.
Our last one is
This is
called
a beautiful
Panel
piece.
Boat Victoria.
Ah, yes.
Victoria was named after Princess Victoria, later become Queen of England. Her father didn't like the closed-in carriage. At that time and age, he wanted his family to be seen.
Yep.
So he asked his carriage maker to make something similar to this. Now, the original Victorian would have been from the back wheel, and the front wheel would have been here. So that's how big the original. This is called a panel boot, which means it's 7/8 the size of the original.
Wow.
And of course, keep in mind, a lot of this would have been an upper class. These two would have been upper class. Everything else in here, middle class to farming communities.
Are those representation of awards or?
No, they're horse brasses. To give you an idea, on the workhorses, or if you're doing like, you watch the Budweiser Clydesdale, you'll see them on
I'm
the,
very familiar with
they're
it.
basically, you will see on their,
They're on their
on the
bridles.
left, they're right,
Yeah.
they're on the sides, and it's just a decoration.
Yeah.
Classy decoration.
Formality,
Oh,
decoration.
Okay.
Okay. I was wondering. 'cause
Yeah,
that's what it
bling.
kind of looked like, but yeah,
It
bling
is.
for the
Yeah,
bridal.
bling, bling, yeah.
Bridal blings.
Well, unless
Very
you
beautiful.
have any other questions.
Yeah.
Isn't it beautiful?
But see, you can see why I'm passionate about protecting what my dad did. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's
I
like
agree
I've
with
told some people, I could be sitting here and I could
Here
be
he
doing
is, the
everything I can
master of
because
this
was
museum.
This is my sister's and I inherited.
Endured this thing. This
So my dad asked, what do you want to do with these?